Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is getting help and how to set up our team. So there's two primary ways that I've seen to do this. One way, first of all, we all agree that we have to set up a team if we want to close more loans, right? That's without saying. So then, and you'll make more money, right? And I get it. People, our team is going to cost us, but it costs us more not to have it. So when we're setting up our team so that we can close more loan and have even more freedom, there's two basic ways of setting up the teams that I've seen. One is what I call the assembly line model, and the other is what I've coined as the pod model. So on the assembly line model, what happens is a lead comes in, somebody takes the application, which typically would be the loan officer, I guess. So the loan officer would take the application, and then they would hand that file off to somebody else, and then that person would order out the file, and then that person would hand it off to somebody else, and that person would print up the docs, and then the client comes in, they sign the docs, and then those docs get passed to another person, then the next person does this, and the next person chases the conditions, and you got different people doing all different kinds of things. I've never cared for that model at all. I think it's harder to scale, and it's incredibly inefficient, and it costs more money per closing. So instead of doing the assembly line model, which by the way, if a loan doesn't close on time, we don't know who to look at. Was it the person who pulled the docs? Was it the person that was chasing the conditions? Was it the processor? Was it we have too many hands in the file. We don't know where the problem is. On the pod model, we know exactly where to look because it's one person that takes it, like this one person and the processor take it to closing. And so typically it would be like the loan officer takes the application, sells the deal, they hand it off to somebody, and that person is like the crew chief of that file. Let's say we hand it off to Jimmy. Jimmy is now the crew chief to that file and takes that file to closing, him and the processor, but Jimmy's in charge. So if it doesn't close on time, it's not the processor's issue, it's Jimmy's issue. He's the one person. So here's what that looks like. So there's you, right? You're the one that's in charge of making the phone ring. You're the ones in charge of bringing in new business, right? So once a phone call comes in, a receptionist answers that call. Now, if you say, well, Carl, I don't have a receptionist, then one of these loan officer assistants can be the receptionist, right? They can start off like if you're starting off with, I'm the first person today, I don't have a team, I'm it, I'm a one woman or one man band. Awesome. We're going to hire a loan officer assistant, and they're going to play the role of receptionist also. So a phone call comes in, receptionist answers. I'd like to speak to Bob, you, the loan officer. Receptionist says, I'm sorry, you, the loan officer, is not available right now. He's with clients, or she's with some clients right now, but we're going to move you to the front of the line. I'm going to have you speak to Jimmy, loan officer assistant number one. He's going to move you to the front of the line, and he's going to start helping you. He's going to take your application, and then he's going to give that information back to you, the loan officer, and then you, the loan officer, is going to call that client back and sell the deal, right? That's how we sell this. So receptionist answers the call. Let me speak to the loan officer. It goes to loan officer assistant number one. Loan officer assistant number one takes the app, puts the deal together, runs DU, pulls credit, doesn't sell the deal, you sell the deal. Loan officer assistant looks in your calendar, finds out what's available on your calendar, sets an appointment up for you to sell the deal for the client. You either meet with a person and you either meet with the client in person, or you do it over the phone, or do it via like a FaceTime or a Zoom meeting. I don't care how you do it, but you sell the deal. Once the deal is sold, you give that file back to loan officer assistant one, Jimmy, and between Jimmy and the processor, they take that file to closing. So what that team looks like is you making the phone ring, doing your Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday activity, the proactive activity that makes the phone ring. You're out doing that. Receptionist answers the phone. By the way, this person gets paid anywhere from minimum wage to maybe $10 an hour, maybe 11, something like that. And by the way, that person doesn't even have to be in your office, right? That person could be in Arkansas while you're in California. Because some people say, well, Carl, here in Seattle, it costs more than minimum wage is 15. This person answers the phone, they can be anywhere, right? Using these phone systems that we use, like Ring Central or Grasshopper, those things. Anyway, so phone call comes in, the receptionist takes it, loan officer assistant number one takes the application, you sell the deal, give it back to loan officer assistant one, and them and the processor take that to closing. They can do that for about 8 files. Now, if you're taking the application and you're selling the deal, and then you hand it off, like in other words, if you're doing a lead to closing, this person can do about 8 files per month, because if they're closing 8 files a month, they're probably working on like 13 or 14, for the next month. So if it's lead to closing, this person can handle about eight closings per month. If it's contract to closing, in other words, you're taking the application, you're meeting with the client, you're running DU, you're pulling the credit, you sell the deal, then you hand it off to your loan officer assistant number one. They can do about 12 files per month. And if they're closing 12, it means they're working on probably 18, 19, maybe even 20, right? So these are definitely capped. So lead to closing, 8 closings per month. Contract to closing, probably closer to 12. So then you go, all right, well, when do I need the second one of these? Because remember, this person and the processor take it to closing. When do we need number 2, loan officer assistant number 2? Well, as soon as when we're at 8 lead to closing or 12 contract to closing, well, then we need to be looking for number 2 here. So if we're closing 15 files per month and these people are doing lead to closing, we need 2 of these people. Well, when do you need the third one? Well, you need the third one when you're doing 8 plus 8, 16. By the time you hit 15 or so, we're looking for this third one here, right? That's the math to it. Again, if it's contract to closing, about 12, 24 for 2 of them, or 36 for 3 of them, right? And these are round numbers. So what your team looks like is 1 loan officer assistant per 8 to 12 closings, 2 when we're doing 16 to 24, and so forth. Do the math. We find the processors. These guys, typically the loan officer assistants, are the ones that's chasing the conditions, talking to the client. Processors got a pretty easy job in this case because they're not chasing any conditions and they're not talking to any borrowers. These people are. So this person, the processor, is really more of like a second pair of eyes rather than like they're almost like a quality assurance, just making sure everything gets done, a second pair of eyes to make sure nothing's getting skipped. And then once you have about 2 of these loan officer assistants, once you're closing about 16 to 20 deals, I like my processor to have an assistant. And this assistant really is in training to either A, be a processor, or B, when one of these guys or girls goes on vacation, when one of my loan officer assistants goes on vacation, this assistant can kind of take the place of that. So this person, he or she, is either A, my next processor, or they're in training to be one of my next loan officer assistants. If I don't think they could do either one of these roles within about 6 months of doing this, I've got the wrong assistant. This person needs to go. Now, the other good thing that this does is, number one, if one of these 8 to 12 files closes late, we know that loan officer assistant number 1 is the person we need to look at. Well, the other thing that allows us to do is we do a round robin of the leads. In other words, when the leads come in, the receptionists get the leads. Lead number 1, she sends here. Lead number 2, here. Lead number 3, here. Lead number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So at the end of the month, they should have about the same amount of leads, plus or minus 1, depending upon where they are in the cycle, right? So they're getting the same amount of leads. Well, if they're getting the same amount of leads, they should be getting the same amount of closings. Because like if we find out that this person, say, got 30 leads for the month, through the receptionist, through your efforts of going out there and getting the business, this person got 30 leads, we're expecting to have we close 25% of our leads. So about half of our leads are closable, and then we fund about half of those that are closable, right? So about 1 out of 4. And so if this person's getting, say, 40 leads, they should have 10 closings, right? If this person got 40 leads, since we're doing the round robin on the leads, well, that means this person should have about 42, maybe 39, maybe 41, but should have about 42. So if we go, all right, loan officer assistant 1, how many leads did you get? 40. How many closes do you have? 9. Awesome. Loan officer assistant number 2, how many leads did you get? 39. How many closed do we have? 10. Awesome. Loan officer assistant number 3, how many leads did you get? 39. How many closings did you get out of those out of those 39? I only got 4. We got a problem, right? So these people know that we're comparing them to each other, how many leads they're getting. Here's what we don't want. We don't want this person or one of these guys to go, well, gee, this looks like a hard lead. It's going to slow me up. So I'm not going to worry about converting this lead. I hope they go with somebody else, i.e., I hope you, the loan officer, doesn't get this loan, because that would mean more work for, this person, whoever this person is. So to keep that from happening, we want to make sure that they're really working at all those leads, that we're helping as many of our referral partners as possible because they deserve it, and we're helping as many of these borrowers as possible. They deserve it. And you're putting all this together, you and your company, you deserve the income from it. We can't let this person stick a stick in your spoke, right? So we want to compare the closing ratios of these 3 people against each other. And if one is substantially lower than the other ones, that we got to find a replacement for that person, right? That's how this works. All right, so we talked about the round robin. We talked about comparing. We talked about closing ratios. Here comes a thing. Let's say we talked about when do you need the next one. Well, when I'm closing 8, man, I need to start. I don't need to start looking for this person. I need to already identify. I need to bring this next person on. Well, the issue is, what if something disastrous happens in the mortgage industry? It happens, right? We see it sometimes happen. Those of us who have been doing this for a while, we saw it a couple times in the last 20 years. Most notably in 2008, with the meltdown. I mean, it was severe. Like, it was real severe. And I don't care what you're doing. It was a challenging time, right? I was in the mortgage industry business then also, like I am now. I was a branch manager then, as I am now. It was challenging. It was very challenging. So if we need to lay somebody off, if we're doing the assembly line model, who do you lay off? The person ordering the file, the person taking the application, the person chasing condition? Like, who do you need all parts of it, right? So that's a problem. Whereas on the pod model, this person, and this person takes a lead from either lead to closing or contract close, like they do everything. They know how to do everything. So if I've got 30 files going, I need 3 people. If something disastrous happens and I go down to 15, what do I need to do? Well, whoever's got my highest closing ratios, I'll keep that one or those 2, and the third ones, I'm going to lay them off, right? Just like FedEx after Christmas, they lay people off because they don't need so many people during the busy season. Or if you're up north where it's cyclical, and in the wintertime, it slows down substantially, you keep your 2 strongest, whichever 2 that might be, closing ratio people, and the weaker one you let go, and then around March you start adding back onto the team again, right? And you're always looking for somebody that can have an even higher closing ratio. So on the assembly line model, it's very difficult to decide, when do we ramp up, when do we slow down, because we need all positions, because all positions are required, all activities are required. But don't have 5 different people doing 5 different activities. Have one person doing all 5 activities. It's so much easier to scale. The other thing is, what happens if the person that prints your docs goes on vacation? Nobody knows how to do that. Then you end up being that person printing the docs, or chasing the conditions, or whatever that is. When we have more than one person, they do the exact same job just on different files. When one person goes on vacation, the other 2 pick up the slack, right? That's how this works. Or if you're going into the holiday season and somebody wants to take, some time off before Christmas, some time off after Christmas, it's a lot easier when everybody knows how to do everything. And we have this assistant down here, that can step up to the plate and do whatever needs to happen. And frankly, a processor could too during periods of vacation or maternity leave or something like this. This is so much better, in my opinion, than the assembly line model. The assembly line model that I've seen is terribly inefficient. You make less money, and there's so much more confusement, because every time you pass baton, somebody can drop it, right? Whereas if you don't pass the baton, this person takes it from contract to close or from lead to close. There's no baton to drop. So I'm going to highly encourage you to go with the pod model. That's what we use in our branch, and it's extremely successful. It's very efficient. It's easy to ramp up and ramp down almost at the snap of a finger. Very profitable way to do it. So that's my description of the assembly line model versus the pod model, and I hope you find that helpful. So thanks for letting me help you guys out, and we'll see you in the next thing.